It's been over 4 years since BioWare Edmonton announced that they're working on a new IP, and at E3 2017, they revealed the title to be Anthem. The game seems to be a hybrid of sorts between Destiny, The Division, and Titanfall, taking place in a very Star Wars-like sci-fi fantasy setting. And the gameplay demo that was shown at E3 2017 was definitely impressive. It looked visually stunning, and gameplay looks like it could potentially be a lot of fun. But as I've stated in a previous video, while I like what I'm seeing, I don't trust Anthem quite yet. I've been burned too many times by final releases that never quite live up to the pre-alpha gameplay footage. I'm gonna wait until I see more of the game or until I get my hands on it before I make a final judgment. But I will say that the game at least has got my attention, and I hope it does live up to the hype. Now, one area that really concerns me about this game is not graphics or gameplay, but rather the type of service that EA and BioWare intend to offer with this game. For those who don't know, prior to Anthem's announcement, EA kept touting how their new IP will implement some kind of live service. And if you aren't familiar with the term, it is exactly what it sounds like. It means that when the game ships, it won't just stay that way forever. It'll evolve constantly as new story and gameplay content is added through the years. This kind of constantly evolving game concept sounds really cool for sure. But if there's one thing that past games with live service have taught me, it's that live service can be exploited to milk as much money from consumers as possible. A prime example of this is Destiny. You may recall that the game shipped for $60, but almost every facet of it felt just incomplete. There was a lot of substantial gameplay content missing, particularly endgame stuff. And most tragic of all, most of the game's story was purposely left unfinished. One thing is to tell a complete story first and then present another story with additional content, but Destiny just launched straight up with half a chapter, basically. Now, a lot of these issues were eventually addressed with downloadable content, but people had to pay a rather steep price. The Dark Below and House of Wolves DLC launched for $20 a pop. The Taken King launched for $40, and Rise of Iron launched for $30. Add on top of that the initial $60 that you pay for the game, and you're looking at a grand total of $170. To add insult to injury, Destiny offered an expansion pass that was $35, but it only covered the first 2 DLCs, the ones that are $20 a pop. So basically the expansion pass saved you $5, so you're still looking at $165 for the full experience. And don't even get me started with the shitty microtransactions that they eventually added to the game. What started with innocent cosmetic stuff eventually evolved into what can only be called pay to win. The range of microtransaction rewards essentially expanded into rare gear and experience boosts. Combine all of these things together, and Destiny to me is a prime example of how live service in games can be incredibly grotesque. In the case of Destiny, live service wasn't primarily utilized to keep the game evolving and to enhance the player experience, but rather as an excuse to sell content that should have launched with the game in the first place separately. Destiny's live service wasn't about expanding the game live, it was about completing the game live. Look, I'm all for DLC as long as the content expands upon the original complete experience. But lately, more and more developers take advantage of this DLC practice as a means to split their content into multiple pieces and sell them separately as if they were expansions. They give you half a pie and then sell you the remaining slices at ludicrous prices instead of giving you a whole pie and then selling additional content separately. From a financial standpoint, it is a scam. Yes, you could argue that Destiny has come a long way since it launched and that the live service has allowed it to become a better game over time, but it all came at an unreasonable cost. Early adopters in particular are the ones who suffered the biggest blow, both financially and in terms of having to test out a not so complete game before everyone else. They were kind of the guinea pigs. It's only lately that the game feels complete and as if it lives up to how the game should have launched in the first place. But it took too long to get there and it asked too much from the consumers. And this is kind of what I fear about Anthem, that its live service will borrow from aspects of Destiny. I fear they will purposely exclude gameplay features and modes as well as key story elements to craft the illusion that the game is undergoing live evolution, when in reality it's undergoing live construction as the consumers pay for the game's completion. And to be honest with you, as of late, it's a practice that I can see EA and BioWare implementing, especially EA. Remember the bare bones Battlefront 1 that launched at $60 and was then quote-unquote expanded upon with ludicrously expensive DLC that featured content that the game should have launched with in the first place? Yeah, good times. Now with Battlefront 2, EA has apparently learned the errors of their way and they're promising that additional content and DLC will all be free for this particular game. But they never guaranteed this was a practice that they were intending to implement in all of their games. With Anthem, they kind of have this brand new IP on their hands, one that isn't associated with shitty practices. So I'm concerned that EA will take advantage of this clean slate to implement some underhanded bullshit under the guise of live service. Now, there is some hope though. There are some great examples out there of how to do live service right. It's not like all live service games are the bane of all existence or anything like that. One of the best examples is Nintendo's Splatoon. The game admittedly launched pretty bare bones, but every new content since launch has been 100% free. We are talking about new stages, new weapons, new gear, new game modes, new events, all without additional cost. Splatoon also featured a lot of cool details that made it feel like the world and the hub was constantly evolving. Things like the news updates that the pop stars Callie and Marie provide about new content or new events. The Splatfest competitions, the game's various community-driven aspects. It all contributed to sell the notion that the world of Splatoon was a living, breathing entity driven by a vibrant community. So yeah, fast forward to a couple of years after the game launched, and now Splatoon is chock full of content and life, and again, all at no additional cost. It's a live service that's both immersive and respectful. A more popular example of a well-executed live service is Overwatch. The game shipped with a solid foundation, but it keeps expanding with new maps, new game modes, characters, lore, all free of charge. Furthermore, I noticed little details like certain maps changing in appearance as the lore develops. And little things like this only serve to enhance the immersion of this live service type of experience. Now, the game does have microtransactions, but it's only for loot boxes that grant you cosmetic stuff like alternate costumes, emotes, and voice lines. None of it is fundamental to gameplay or story, and if you're an avid player, you can just unlock a bunch of loot boxes by leveling up and playing the game, all without spending a single additional cent. One final example that I'd like to provide is a game called Warframe, which I believe is among the better free-to-plays out there. Since launch, the game has continuously expanded with new gameplay and story content, and there are no signs of that stopping. Just a couple days ago, they announced that they plan to implement an open world, a social hub, a day and night cycle, and much more, all at no charge. Say what you want about Warframe, but there's no denying that it has one hell of a live service. The game has evolved so much since it launched, and all that content has been free for anyone to consume. And there are many more examples that I could provide for good live service, but you get the idea. The bottom line is that good live service provides a sense of immersion in the way that the game world changes and evolves while respecting consumers by offering the vital content, the stuff that's pivotal to gameplay and story. All of that stuff should be included in the initial core content or for free. And when good live service does charge money, it does so with the intent of significantly expanding upon a completed core experience rather than finishing construction on an incomplete experience. So with all that in mind, here's the deal with Anthem. Regardless of if this game ends up being as beautiful or ends up playing as well as the E3 2017 gameplay demo makes it out to be. What will make it or break it for me is its ability to implement a live service that respects its consumers and immerses players. If it becomes clear that the game purposely left out gameplay content or story content for the sake of splitting that stuff up and then selling them separately at ludicrous prices, then this is going to be a dead on arrival for me. It's what completely turned me off from Destiny, and I imagine it'll do the same for Anthem, no matter how beautiful it looks or how well it plays. On the other hand, if EA and BioWare can ensure that Anthem takes the Overwatch, the Splatoon, the Warframe approach with the game's live service, it's going to have one hell of a head start. I'm not saying that all of their content should be free. I know that AAA titles like Anthem and additional content for these types of titles can be rather expensive. But they also have to understand that consumers are paying for this stuff, and as a result, consumers expect products that are worth their money. So if Anthem plans to charge for their expansions, they better live up to their name and actually expand upon a core completed experience. They're called expansions and not constructions for a reason. It's only once Anthem's live service comes together competently and with good intentions that the game will have the potential to have a good reputation. And they could use some good reputation right about now. After the whole Andromeda fiasco, all eyes are on BioWare. Now is not the time for BioWare and EA to fuck with their community with greedy practices. Knowing EA though, not gonna lie, I am more pessimistic than I am optimistic. I can't shake the feeling that EA will exploit Anthem's live service to prioritize squeezing as much money as possible over enhancing player experience, over providing tons of free content a la Overwatch and Splatoon and Warframe and whatnot. Hey, they've done shitty live service practices before, and the sad part is that it probably worked. They probably made a decent amount of money from all that. But hey, you never know. Let's hope they prove me wrong, and let's hope that BioWare makes an epic comeback with this new IP. But right now, my trust for BioWare and EA are at an all-time low, so I'm not gonna hold my breath, but I am gonna hope. Anyway, there you go, folks. My thoughts and opinions on why I think the live service aspect of this game might make or break it. I'd love to hear what you think about all this in the comments below. Also, if you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon so we can remain independent from third-party sponsorship and corporate interference. And to be further updated on all things BioWare, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.